Hello, everyone. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Good Friday morning. Welcome to the second episode of Booking a Better Wrestler, the show where we take one specific wrestler who may not have been handled the best by WWE and we try to recreate him. My name is Paul Laporte, and I am here with this very early Christmas morning recording for you all out there. Is a special treat. I'm pretty tired, so hopefully my words don't slur together too much, and this is still an entertaining show for you. The Adam Rose broadcast went over really well, so I figured we would do this. Maybe I'll do this alternating with changing the questions. So changing the questions is done on Tuesday and Thursday. I think I might do this on Wednesdays and Fridays. Speaking of which, if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out the most recent episode of Changing the Questions, where we take a look at the question of whether or not WWE is going to improve once Vince McMahon is gone. Be sure to check that one out. That one was a good one, and one of the questions that we get asked most frequently, so be sure to check that out. But for today, the wrestler that we are going to be looking at for this episode is going to be none other than Curtis Axel. Now, normally at this point in the show, I would give a recap of what the wrestler has been doing recently. For Curtis Axel, that's going to basically be silence, because he hasn't been doing much of anything as of late. Most recently, we saw him in his Axelmania gimmick, where last year he was not officially eliminated from the Royal Rumble. He used that as an excuse to say that he was the rightful winner of the Royal Rumble, so he had a few spots on Raw here and there, and then this all culminated with him getting beaten up by Hulk Hogan, and then for some reason transiently turning into him. So that went away when the whole Hulk Hogan racist rants got released, and Hulk Hogan was basically scrubbed from existence from the company. And since then, Curtis Axel has just been basically taking a paycheck to play video games on Up, Up, Down, Down. So let's go ahead and try and bring him back into television. Okay, so for Curtis Axel, obviously he has a legacy. He's Kurt Hennig's son. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to use that. And what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate him into the storyline of another wrestler, and that wrestler would be none other than Brock Lesnar. Now, I know you're thinking, okay, well, why does Brock need to hang around with Curtis Axel? But if you take a look at other dramatic stories, the major characters tend to use minor characters for their own benefit. So Brock Lesnar recently wrestled Alberto Del Rio for the U.S. title and faced interference by Rusev, costing him the match. I mean, he won, but he won by DQ. He didn't get the belt. Because of this, Paul Heyman is going to see the change that is happening in WWE and the fact that a lot of the big powers are now aligning with each other. You have the League of Nations with Rusev, Del Rio, Sheamus, and an injured Wade Barrett. You have the quote-unquote family, as it's been terribly named, between Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and the Usos. Paul Heyman is going to see this and realize that despite the fact that his client, Brock Lesnar, is a complete and total badass powerhouse killing machine, he still is going to need some form of help. And he is going to initially seek that form of help in not Curtis Axel at first, but Jack Swagger. He is going to seek Jack Swagger's help because Jack Swagger has history with Alberto Del Rio, and Paul Heyman is going to see him as kind of a kindred spirit in the fact that both him and Brock are amateur wrestlers. He thinks that those guys will get along well. He thinks that maybe he'll be a good training partner for Brock Lesnar, and he takes Jack Swagger under his wing, and he tries to help mold and transform Jack Swagger, get him back to the prominence he used to have. And I mean, I think that would be good for Swagger. This episode isn't about him, but that's going to get him a mouthpiece. You work with Paul Heyman, it's going to rub off on you well. So from there on out, they decide that they need a third guy. After doing well, you know, they're getting themselves back into the main event picture, gearing up for WrestleMania, but they maybe have some altercations with either the League of Nations or the family or both, where they realize that 2 isn't just quite enough, despite the fact that Brock Lesnar is probably about as good as 2 of any of those guys. They decide to bring in a 3rd guy. So they think, we only need 3 for our group because we have Brock Lesnar. And Paul Heyman decides to reach out to an old name in Curtis Axel, who used to formerly be under his charge back when he was just started working with Brock, and when he had CM Punk under his wing as well. And Curtis Axel is going to be apprehensive about this at first. Like, you didn't do anything for me the last time. All you did was focus on Brock, and you just threw me by the wayside. Same thing happened with Cesaro. Why should I trust you? And Paul Heyman is going to do his best impression to worm his way back into the good graces and say, Brock trained with your father. He has a lot of respect for your family. I know things didn't work out with us this time, but what are you doing these days? You're sitting backstage, you're eating catering, you're doing nothing. Is that what you want to do? You're 35 years old. I think he's 36. It's like you need to enter the point where you are going to have to make a decision with your career. Are you going to be happy just sitting in the back and doing nothing, or are you going to try and do something real with this career of yours? And there is no better way to do that than to align yourself with the most powerful monster that's ever walked through this company. Join me, and I will make sure that you will get the opportunities that you have not seen in years. I will make sure that you see title opportunities. You will wear gold around that waist, whether it's a tag gold with Jack Swagger or the IC or the US titles. I will make sure that happens for you. You will be more high profile. You will have more money. This is a better move for you in every way. Does it benefit me? Yes, but it's a mutually beneficial agreement. So we'll have Curtis Axel agree to that, and now it's the 3 of them, Jack Swagger, Curtis Axel, and Brock Lesnar, and with their abilities, they get back on top. Not only does Brock Lesnar regain the World Heavyweight Championship, he beats Roman Reigns at WrestleMania for it, but we also have Jack Swagger and Curtis Axel. We'll start off with them getting the tag team titles, so we'll get them from, we'll say, we can say that New Day drops it to the Usos in January at the Royal Rumble to get it back on a face tag team, or maybe even the Lucha Dragons, and then Swagger and Axel beat them, and then we can go from there. However, it starts to get to the point where Brock Lesnar does get on top, and once he has his belt back, he starts to become power hungry and power mad again, and he treats his friends, his partners, increasingly badly. He just continues to, first it starts off with little things, he just does some alpha male bullshit and just belittles them, talks down to them, like, oh, you guys are doing a good job, you guys are good underlings, things like that. And then it'll get to the point maybe to where he's possibly, physically abusing them and actually, like just beating them up, using them as his punching bags when things don't go his way with other people in the main event scene. Especially, this can all culminate with him maybe even losing the title, or maybe keeping the title, but having a very difficult fight that kind of hurt him very badly, that he felt that Swagger and Axel didn't help him with, so he takes his frustrations out on them. And then it gets to the point where maybe Swagger sticks around, but Curtis Axel decides he's fed up with this and decides that he's not going to take it anymore. He rebels against this group that Paul Heyman has built, against Heyman and against Brock, against Swagger as well, but Swagger's a little bit more reluctant to stay, but he does so. And then you move Curtis Axel into a feud with Brock Lesnar. Now you go from Axel doing nothing to feuding with one of the most high-profile guys in the company in a story that I think would be an interesting arc for the character. It ties into what he's done in the past, working with Paul Heyman. It ties Brock in with his history with his father, who was one of his trainers. And then you move Curtis Axel into the upper mid card. He's not going to be a main eventer. I don't think you'd have him beat Brock for the title. Maybe you have him beat Brock in a high profile non-title match, or you have Axel cost Brock the title, and then you work that into their feud, and then you have them have a match, some sort of big blow off. Again, because this is PG. We're kind of limited as far as what we can do with a gimmick match. But it doesn't even need to be a gimmick match. It could just be a regular wrestling match, and they can play that up. Like Curtis Axel could say, like, listen, you're such a good wrestler, out wrestle me. Let's see what you got. Let's see what I've got. And then just have a high profile match, and then maybe you have Curtis Axel get the win or get some sort of fluke roll-up finish. Obviously, if Brock Lesnar demolishes John Cena, Curtis Axel probably shouldn't be getting a clean win over him. Nobody should really be getting a clean win over Brock Lesnar. But you can have something happen where Curtis Axel comes out of that looking strong, and then when their feud is done, now you have this guy who's up near that upper mid-card tier. He's at the level of Dean Ambrose. He's at the level of Kevin Owens, and then you can move him into a feud from there, either as a heel or a babyface, preferably a babyface if you're going to have him turn away from Paul Heyman and company. Those are just a couple ideas, but I think that those are ways that you can use him beneficially. He's got a good look, he's got a pedigree, he's fine in the ring. I think that the biggest problem he has is he doesn't really have a personality, he doesn't have a presence, and I think working with Paul Heyman will help him build that up, and having a feud with Brock Lesnar will give him a purpose. It'll give him a reason to be wrestling, instead of just going out there for a silly gimmick or just being a background noise. Essentially, it'll give him his own personality, and it'll define him as a wrestler and as a quote-unquote sports entertainer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I hope you enjoyed my ideas. If you have any suggestions for wrestlers you'd like to see me cover in future episodes of Booking About a Wrestler, you can hit me up on Twitter. You can hit up the Changing the Questions Twitter account is @ChangingTheQs, so that's @ChangingTheQs. You can also send us email at changingthequestions@gmail.com. You can also look us up on Facebook or our YouTube pages. Just search Changing the Questions for either of those. And that's going to do it for me. My name is Paul Laporte. I hope all of you out there are having a good holiday or not holiday, and we'll see you on Tuesday for the next episode of Changing the Questions. Take care.